Hi, my name is Corey Reeser, and this is my fourth reflection for my fieldwork observations for the practicum unit for Education 476. So this lesson that I taught was taught on March 14th, 2016, and it was the Create a Bill group activity that was actually taught in relationship to the Bill of Rights lessons that I provided instruction for. So basically, this was the collaborative process or the collaborative aspect of the lesson, which the students would, as I'll describe further, they would basically assemble themselves in groups and then implement the major themes that we learned in the Bill of Rights and the how a bill becomes law activity that I did with them prior. So this was all done within the context of first period American government at Chaffey High School. As discussed previously, the age high school seniors, 12 EL students in the class of 36. And I actually had to, in this process, two of my EL students I allowed to work together against my better judgment, and they actually ended up producing one of the better bills that was introduced during the group activity. So when you're talking about, I went through the agenda to start things off. Basically, introduction to the Create a Bill group activity, the congressional group selection, which was basically the students are required to assemble in groups, and this basically represents, a congressional group, such as the most recent one was the Gang of Eight that develop a proposal and submit it to Congress. They have to choose a current event in which they want to address an issue that involves the Bill of Rights, so amendments 1 through 10, and this was done in conjunction with their current event. They could utilize their current event that was done during the Bill of Rights Lesson 6 through 10 computer lab assignment. They were then required to create their bill based off of their research. I actually provided them with a worksheet that guided them through the bill creation process. So subsection 1, or you have sections 1, 2, 3, subsection 1A, so on and so forth. And all of this was done to basically enhance my students' understanding of how a law, so how a law basically is drafted to begin with, and then how within the context of amendment, how there are various things that address various aspects of a certain situation. I then provided, they were then required to create their final version, and they had to submit it for credit. The final version actually incorporated a PowerPoint presentation, which was utilized in order to enhance the effectiveness of their argument as to why Congress, which in this case would be the 36 students in the class, myself being the president, it offers an advertisement as to why I should or should not pass this piece of legislation. So they had to introduce it, as we'll go on within the discussion of the lesson. So here's the objective: that by the end of the lesson, students will be able to research and analyze a current event or issue and create a piece of legislation, a bill, that provides a legal resolution. Students will design a 2 to 5 slide PowerPoint presentation to introduce their bill to the class. The students will provide an analysis of their bill in order to persuade the class to vote for their legislation. So this is what the students were required to do, and actually all of the groups were able to achieve this lesson objective for the Create a Bill activity. So here was the situation that I gave them. Funny picture on the right, situation from the Jersey Shore. You are a member of Congress and a legislative body of 36 representatives. You and 2 other members of Congress have decided that in order to solve a problem, you are going to write a bill and present it to Congress. Your bill must be persuasive, since it must be passed by a majority vote in the House and Senate. If all goes well and your bill passes and is signed by President Reeser, myself, then your bill will become law. So the players, Mr. Reeser, I'm the president. CC and Andy are 2 TAs that I have. CC acted as my chief of staff, and Andy acted as my political advisor. And this was actually kind of fun because we sat in the middle of the class, and as the students were producing their argument and their PowerPoint slides, I actually let Cece and Andy, basically like, hey, should I sign this as the president? What do you think? And I kind of removed myself from the situation and still allowed my TAs, who were also seniors, to involve themselves in the class. The students were the representatives of Congress, and they were the ones required to move their bill basically through an archaic version of the committee process onto the floor of the House, and then onto the president for signature and passage into law. The rules were that each group can be no more than 4 individuals. Each group must research and issue to resolve. Each group must develop a law that directly relates to the chosen issue, and they must submit a written form of the law on the activity worksheet that I provided them. They have to provide any supporting details and information that enhances their legal argument as well in order to get their bill passed. Each group must develop a PowerPoint slide of 2 to 5 slides to convince a 51% majority of Congress to pass the law. So we were going by simple majority. Here are the directions that I provided to the students. And then, as you can see, it basically just provides another overview of what the students were required to do. And an application of theory for this process was basically testing objectivity, and then implementing subjective factors and grading. So it was basically my responsibility. I had the rubrics printed out for each group and my master teacher actually used it as a part of their actual grade to assess whether the students were able to identify the major parts in the objective and whether they met the requirements that were identified in the grading rubric itself. So this was an application of theory for part 5, just in the fact that I tested their ability through formative assessment regarding their understanding and comprehension of amendments 1 through 10 and how a bill is developed and becomes law in the American legal system. And that is my reflection for Education 476.